Okay, let's talk about the Arab world. It's got half the planet's oil, sits right at the crossroads of three continents. I mean, talk about potential. So why is it also one of the most volatile places on Earth? That's the huge paradox we're going to unpack in this explainer.
And to really get a sense of just how important this region is, you just gotta follow the oil. Seriously, the world's biggest economies are completely hooked. Look at Japan. 95% of its oil comes from the Arab region. 95%. For India, it's 60%. In China, 56%. So yeah, this isn't just another market. It's basically the lifeline for the entire global economy. But here's the thing. All that oil money, all those petrodollars, have created two totally different worlds. On one side, you've got these incredible, glittering skylines. Think Dubai, Doha, Abu Dhabi, these symbols of unbelievable wealth. And then, on the other side, you see the complete opposite. Places like Cairo, Damascus, Baghdad, landscapes just scarred by conflict and decay. It's like night and day.
And this all leads to the central question, right? How can a region that shares so much, a common culture, language, faith, be so incredibly fragmented? I mean, we're talking about 22 different countries, and a lot of the time they're at each other's throats. To figure that out, well, we need to go back. Way back. All right, so let's start digging into the history here. To really get what's happening now, we have to rewind the clock. And you might be surprised to learn that the roots of today's problems weren't planted by modern politicians. Nope, they were sown centuries ago by the land itself. The very first thing that split people up? Geography. Just look at a map. These huge, scorching deserts literally carved the Arab world into separate little pockets of civilization. It created these distinct regions, the Fertile Crescent, North Africa, the Arabian Peninsula. And each one developed its own unique vibe, its own character. And get this, a lot of the time, they were actually more connected to Europe across the Mediterranean Sea than they were to each other across all that sand.
But it wasn't always this divided. There was this incredible period of unity and just mind-blowing progress. We're talking about the Islamic Golden Age. Back then, cities like Baghdad and Damascus weren't just regional hubs. They were the center of the entire world for science, for trade, for culture. I mean, this is the era that gave us algebra, unbelievably advanced surgical tools, the astrolabe for navigation. It's a huge point of pride, and for very good reason.
But, well, golden ages don't last forever. The Ottoman Empire took over, and for the next 400 years, the Arab world was pushed to the sidelines. It became a backwater, really. All the big decisions were being made in Istanbul, not in historic centers like Baghdad or Cairo. And there was this system the Ottomans had. They often recruited their top officials from non-Muslim communities. The result? Arabs were pretty much locked out of power in their own lands. And for 4 centuries, the region just stagnated. It fell behind. So now you've got this long, slow decline, and that creates a power vacuum. And you know who loves a power vacuum? European powers. They were more than ready to step in. But here's the interesting part. They didn't show up with armies right away. No. They came with banks and with checkbooks. See, local rulers were desperate to modernize, to catch up. So they took out these huge loans for massive projects, like the Suez Canal. On paper, it makes sense. But just look at Egypt. They borrowed a mind-boggling £68.5 million. But here's the catch, the trap. Only 16% of that cash actually made it into Egypt's economy. The rest? It was immediately eaten up by interest payments. It was a debt spiral, and it was absolutely devastating. And the craziest part, they were warned, loud and clear. An advisor literally begged the Ottoman Sultan, do not borrow even 5 piastres from these guys. He saw exactly what was going to happen, but that lure of easy European money, it was just too tempting. And so, one by one, rulers all over the region walked right into the same exact trap. So what happens when you can't pay your debts? Well, predictably, financial control turned into straight-up political control. When these local governments defaulted, the European powers didn't just send debt collectors, they sent armies. They just moved in and took over. And just like that, within a few decades, pretty much all of Arab North Africa was under direct colonial rule. And that brings us to the 20th century. This is where things get really messy. Because now, these colonial powers started to remake the entire region in their own image. They started drawing lines on maps, making promises they couldn't keep, or never intended to keep. And in doing so, they lit a fire that honestly is still burning today. Okay, check this out. During World War I, the British go to the Arabs and say, hey, if you help us fight the Ottomans, we'll give you a single, huge, independent Arab kingdom. Sounds great, right? But at the exact same time, two diplomats, a Brit named Mark Sykes and a Frenchman named François Picot, were huddled over a map, secretly carving up the entire region for themselves, drawing these perfectly straight lines with a ruler, lines that made zero sense on the ground, just dividing up the spoils.
And as if that wasn't complicated enough, another promise was made, one with absolutely earth-shattering consequences. In 1917, the British issued something called the Balfour Declaration. It basically said they supported creating a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. The problem? At the time, Arabs made up almost 90% of the people living there. This single promise set the stage for everything that followed: the UN's partition plan in 1947, the war that broke out immediately after, and a massive refugee crisis that is still at the very heart of the region's most painful and long-running conflict.
You'd think after these countries got their independence, the interference would stop, but not a chance. Take 1956. You have this secret plot cooked up by Israel, Britain, and France. Their goal? To get the Suez Canal back from Egypt's new, super charismatic leader, Gamal Abdel Nasser. The plan was wild. Israel would attack Egypt, and then Britain and France would swoop in, pretending to be peacekeepers to protect the canal. But the whole thing was a spectacular failure. It backfired completely and accidentally turned Nasser into a massive hero all across the Arab world.
And Nasser's newfound fame really fueled this dream of pan-Arabism, the idea of creating one single, powerful, unified Arab nation. For a minute, it almost looked like it could happen. He actually managed to unite Egypt and Syria into something called the United Arab Republic. But it only lasted 3 years before it fell apart. All those different interests, those separate identities that had been building up for centuries, they were just too strong. And the dream of a united Arab superstate, well, it stayed just a dream. Okay, so that's the backstory. A long legacy of foreign meddling, borders drawn by outsiders, and dreams of unity that never came true. And all of that leads us right to the present day, to the tinderbox we see now. And there's a whole new set of pressures fanning the flames. So there's this really interesting political theory out there. It basically says that the younger a country's population is, the more likely it is to have some kind of major unrest or revolution. And if you look back at history, from the French Revolution all the way to the Arab Spring, it holds up. These things often happen in places with a really low median age. Well, guess what? Today, the median age in most of the Arab world is under 30. But just having a lot of young people isn't the whole story. The situation becomes really explosive when you mix that youth with a total lack of opportunity. And as you can see right here, North Africa and the Arabian Peninsula suffer from some of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world. So think about it. Millions of young, educated, ambitious people with absolutely no way to channel their energy. It is a textbook recipe for unrest. And you might think, well, what about the super rich Gulf states? But even there, that incredible oil wealth just doesn't trickle down. In fact, these are some of the most unequal societies on the entire planet. You have a tiny, super rich minority controlling everything, while the vast majority of people are often poor, and many don't even have basic rights. So let's put all the pieces together. You've got a deep history of division, much of it imposed from the outside. You have unimaginable oil wealth that's stuck at the very top, and you have this massive, young and jobless population. All of these forces are crashing into each other right now, and it leaves us with one final, very provocative question. Is the Arab world, a region born from a true golden age, now destined for another century of conflict?